Hello, good morning, good evening, and I'm pretty sure this is a late evening in North America if you're in North America. Uh, Recently, in last week, we have seen um, uh, a surprising military attack um, and a battle that was kind of expected, but it was not expected the way it went. We are going to take a very close look at what happened between India and Pakistan. Of course, we have been talking about this for a while. Last episode, we tried to cover the consequences and how this war could impact and what will be the impact and how India will react to April 22nd attacks in Kashmir. Um, so we have seen majority of this tussle between these countries. Now, I think in retrospective, we would like to see exactly and understand what happened. So for that, with me from Chicago, US, Holmesbury is here. Thank you, Casey, as usual, for joining. I know you have been sleepless for last few days, and I was reluctant to ask you to join for this conversation. So let's dive right into this thing. I think the basic question and the very simple question which all of us want to understand is how the hell it all started. We know the Pulwama attacks that happened on April 22nd, but was that sufficient of a event that could trigger this kind of a war where Pakistani air bases and Pakistani mosques and cities were targeted in a relentless fashion? You're mute, we can't hear you.
Okay, so Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think this question is not just you; it's everybody's asking at this point. That it was an incident where India should have like actually done something about it, but it wasn't an incident that you actually go with a nuclear rival. You go on a war trough and go to a level where you just have this kind of um, kind of conflict actually happens when you have full confidence in your armed forces that ultimately you're just going to actually have a punch, and then you're just almost certain that you're going to actually win. So I think we have to take that presumption that that was the case, that they had this pretty much understanding that this is exactly was going to be the outcome, that where they would be the winners and they would have the hegemon in the region. So it's all about the hegemony they want to actually create. I think this is where lies the answer, that they were in full confidence that they would be able to actually take Pakistan down, or at least like bruise them very well, which they were not aware that okay, the other side was pretty much ready for it.
Okay, so I think then we can dive right into Operation Sindoor. I think that's
Right.
what they named it. And very interestingly, I think Modi take the credit for naming this operation as Operation Sindoor and its objectives. As you mentioned, that they were India was very overconfident about their capabilities and that they will bring down Pakistan, um, you know, in the battleground and as well as I think politically as well as in the global perspective.
Right.
So, if we want to specify the objectives of Operation Sindoor, other than, of course, the military action in Pakistan,
Right.
what would be those other two or three objectives that India was trying to achieve?
I think the topmost is the hegemon, that to prove it to the world that okay, they are foes to be reckoned with. And in reality, what has happened is they have actually given this opportunity to Pakistan, that now Pakistan can actually claim that Pakistan is the one force which is to be reckoned with, and that's what kind of like a scenario, I think basically has evolved. But I think that was the topmost. And the second one, I would say, in terms of the categorization, if like actually look, is that Pakistan was becoming a nuisance for them, like at least from their perspective. That ultimately Pakistan, all of a sudden, like after 3 4 years, you have this incident in India, which they cannot actually explain it to people. Although there is a very significant chances that that was a false flag,
Hmm.
and they use those opportunities to actually kind of pump up their own public. But that was the ultimate objective, to show their public that okay, they have this enough power to actually take them down. So that's the second one. And third one, since they have like all this military equipment available, why not actually use it? Like Pakistan now able to actually come on the international front and then say, okay, these are the textbook example in terms of the actual fighter pilots or fighter jets or the planes. So all these toys needs to be actually tested in a real life environment situation. So India thought, might as well test like S-400s or test Rafales. We spent so much, money on them, so that would create this. That would facilitate to create this hegemony they were after. So I think these were the three most I can think of.
Okay, so the hegemony, declaring, in other words, declaring themselves as the champions of this region,
Right.
and you said in testing the equipment, and the third is that testing Pakistan's capabilities, maybe. Uh, was there, any political, like locally, Modi was looking for any political gain by initiating this thing? Was the popularity of Modi for the coming up elections was one of the objectives too? Like, do you think that was in Modi's mind?
Look, I mean that first of all, like once we're gonna actually dissect this, there's gonna be always some gainers, okay? And there was some certain perception in people's mind that okay, if it turns out one way or another, there's going to be a benefits. So, I mean, I think that we should do last, that who actually
Okay,
got benefited from it. So, like from the China
sure, sure.
perspective, Pakistan and India and individuals,
Right,
how
right.
they got benefited
But
from it.
I was totally at this time focusing on Operation Sindoor, and its
Right.
objectives in India's mind, not in like anybody else's mind. Um, if US, I think when we are discussing the objectives, I think it's important to look at other parties involved in here. So, do you think, and are there any signals from the conversations that we have heard, the news, and everything else from around the globe, that US was aware of this operation that is going to take place and was kind of a part of this game that was started by India? Is there any chance or evidence that we can support with this theory that maybe US all was happening under the US umbrella and US Ashirwad?
Look, US is going to always have some benefit or disadvantages, like in this scenario anyway. I mean, under Trump is going to be entirely different kind of relationship with India. So that we know for sure. So we have to understand that this is going to be always the case. Whenever Democrats come in, it's going to be entirely different policy. I mean, I wouldn't say entirely different policy, but Democrats are always leaning towards India and against Pakistan. Doesn't matter what it is. This is like a party line. Under Republicans, it's always kind of like tend to support Pakistan. Doesn't matter like what is happening. So, for instance, if you look at Bush era, although there was 9/11, but at the same time, like there was quite friendly attitude. If you look in terms of the Clinton, just like few months before, although there was like absolutely normal situation, but they were like kind of like giving a cold shoulder to Pakistan and a lot more susceptible towards um, India. So it's going to be always the case. Now here, like Biden for 4 years, like obviously given a cold shoulder to Pakistan. Besides the regime change, so even after the regime change, I mean, he wasn't really friendly to Pakistan, as you could see. I mean, otherwise he would have actually, invited some people over.
Mhm.
And when Trump came in, there's still not really friendly situation, but he look, when the war started, like what kind of a statement came out. So India was sort of like expecting that it's going to be a lot more susceptible. Like JD was there. We did discuss like in very detail. So I just want to focus on more so that what was the ground reality. It's not just about the actual what he was expecting, what Modi was like getting benefit from it. I mean, we all already know what was happening, the hysteria being created in the media. We already know, we have seen it. It's like lunacy. I mean, so much so that, in the midst of the war, just before that, Gawaria actually calls Iranian ambassador a pig. And now
Hmm.
it's like the whole Indian, establishment is in trouble. Like, there was not just about saying something distasteful. It is like the two nations is going to have like a really bad taste. It's just like they didn't realize what they are doing, what they were doing, and badly beaten.
Got
That,
it. So basically, the objectives were, I think we listed those objectives very clearly, and that's one of the few of the possible objectives this operation had. But
right.
it boggles anybody's mind with some sanity that India, while doing so great economically and everybody looking up to India as the next China, and suddenly this Operation Sindoor is launched
Look,
from our.
we have discussed this like
Yeah, yeah,
a few times, and this is the biggest question mark like in this whole situation. Like we have discussed it many a
yeah,
times. We've been discussing it for like past 48, 72
yeah,
hours. And if somebody goes mental, I mean, there's no rationale behind it. So what kind of rationale we going to find out from this? I
yeah.
simply, they have just literally gone berserk. Their mind didn't work. They were just like mental case. They were should be put in a like a madhouse or something. I don't
Absolutely.
know.
At
Yeah.
the same time, Casey, if you find somebody mental, it's a case study that you should be looking into it to find out what was going inside the mind. Now, let's get into this thing
I'll tell
that
you what goes inside their mind. I gave you 3 points, like, right? So whoever haven't seen it or heard it, just rewind back. So those were the 3 points.
Mhm.
Secondly, when you are in the midst of this, like, okay, even though if you have certain intellectual capacity left in order to actually figure it out what's going on, in the midst of it, that capability is not really there because you have like all this rhetoric going on. Your mental state is not really stable, so you are not able to actually fully utilize your IQ. I mean, you probably would have seen in your own lives. I mean, if you look at it like, if you are come to the crunch, like for instance, all of a sudden your house is burning. I mean, what kind of intellectual capacity is going to actually utilize at this point in time that you're just going to actually, use it? So is that kind of a situation. Once the rhetoric is being built to that level where it was touching, and I use those words, the first 4 days was all about rhetoric. I gave you those three
Yep.
different phases. So rhetoric turned into hysteria. So now you lose more intellectual capacity in every stage. And then the final stage was lunacy. So the
Mhm.
moment you touch the boundaries of lunacy, you forget about any mental calibration or intention or like how you going to calculate that. At that point in time, you are just mad. You are mental. You're not going to be thinking that through. You cannot like compute in a natural way, and that's what happened. And that's not just happen on one person who is on the top, Moody's criteria and all those kind of things. On that point, the whole nation was in this hysteria
Mhm.
because the media was playing this. We destroyed Karachi. The Karachi port is being destroyed. Thousands of people being killed. Islamabad being taken over. We have actually arrested the army chief of the army staff. I mean, oh my God. I mean, so seriously, they were not thinking that there would be alternate scenario. Yes, it could have all happened, but we were in the midst of it, and they were thinking that that would be the culmination point of it, which wasn't.
Got it.
And they were living in fool's paradise, basically. Yeah.
No, that's true. I mean, if we look at it retrospectively, of course, it looks like this, like they were living in a fool's paradise. But at the moment when it was happening, of course, Indian think tank had some objectives in their mind. I think we went through those objectives. I think one of the objectives or maybe expectation from the Indian think tank, which we might not be looking at, was that they were expecting some kind of in Pakistan internal. They were looking to exploit Pakistan's internal situation, like we have seen, and we encountered many people in the social media as well, where they were talking continuously about Pakistan's internal state, and this is the opportunity somehow that Indian government is providing to Pakistan, so that the Pakistanis can get rid of this army government.
Right.
So that was one of the, I think, hidden expectation from India, that once they launch this attack and this hysteria mixed with this dissatisfied population, where the most popular leader is inside the jail, that might trigger some kind of an internal revolt, and that could, they could destroy the enemy from within. That could have been one of the objectives too. Now, moving forward from the internal Pakistan exploitation aspect into the global part, I think India was expecting that the global players like US, of course, and Russia, or maybe other countries would put pressure on Pakistan, and Pakistan will face this diplomatic pressure and will crumble in this pressure. That did not happen either. So I think
Right.
India is they are crying at the moment over this, their, their diplomatic failure, where none of the country, actually, I haven't, like, except I think I read one statement which was really like the lowest of my uh, you know moments in my life, is that when Palestinian president said that they're standing with the Indian, they're supporting Indian viewpoint. I'm not sure if that was a fake news or that was actually being said, but other than that, if we look at Pakistan, China was one of the key player that came forward very clearly, supporting Pakistan. We saw Turkey did the same thing. Azerbaijan, although a very small country, but did the same thing. So why suddenly nobody believed India?
Okay, so basically, there's a track record. It's not just all of a sudden like India is not to be believed. I mean, the intellectuals all around the globe, like obviously, for people who no matter what is going to actually support India, but other countries has to really weigh in that whether what sort of character you have. So you have to understand this, that if you've been kind of lied to before, then ultimately what's going to happen, because on in recent times India has been on killing spree pretty much in the Western nations. If you look at it, Canada, UK, America, they just went around on a killing spree. So you have targeted killing going on in the sovereign countries.
Which is
Now,
terrorism, basically, which is also kind
yeah,
of
I mean,
terrorism.
they claim that the Sikh terrorists, they have like Sikhs separatists as on a terror list. They actually killed about 26 people in Pakistan too, and Pakistan was kind of like put under the rug, that kind of news, because they thought like, okay, it's going to be very detrimental if they actually come and do something in the public. So India and Pakistan tend to actually do through the proxies in any way. So there's no benefit in actually bringing it to the light. But anyhow, Canada was just really upset. I mean, the prime minister coming up and doing a press conference on that this is, I mean, they actually even sent some diplomats back and asked them to leave.
Yeah.
So that was like literally the Canadian citizens being killed, American citizens being killed. I mean, taken them out. And on this, like I would, so for instance, if you look at it, this is Indian Chronicles. Like that's been 15 years of operation targeting the EU and United Nations to serve Indian interests. So I mean, if you look at it, it's been going on for 15 years. That
Mhm.
they were actually putting up thousands of websites out with the fake news. And like with the AI, you already know that how AI works. Basically, if I can actually put up some, and this is called EU Disinfo Lab. So if you actually go and put up this information, whatever in your mind is true, and then publish that website, ultimately AI engines would start to actually pick those up. In 3 months' time, you'll see that it starts to pick up by the Google. You can put an advert out. You can, and you can download the whole executive summary. I mean, this is like a long report. I mean, if you actually look at it, so they've been doing like 750 fake media in 116 countries. This whole operation has been going on worldwide. So 550 websites, domain names registered under those to do that. And then they were running all those as a news website. So all those news website has been putting out like their narrative, and this has been 15-year long operation since the running since 2005. So up till 2020, this has been going on. 10 plus human rights council accredited NGOs were created. I mean, you creating these NGOs who are going to be actually further their cause. 750 fake media outlets covering in 119 countries, 550 domain names I've already told you in terms of the news. And the thing is, the use of the members of European Parliament to create a mirage of institutional support from European institutions to these minority groups in favor of Indian interest and against Pakistan and China. So they've been doing that like for ages. I mean, they're putting this narrative
Basically,
out.
you're saying that because the world knows what their character has been,
I mean,
and
I'm just giving you exactly the real life case here. So, I mean, obviously, what's going to happen when they are actually expecting that the international powers is going to come to help, come to their help? They were the liars to begin with. So, I
got it.
mean, yeah. So
So
they
basically,
know. Yeah.
if we look into this, then it's not that the billions of Pakistan, but it is the it is the character of the Indian government has been recently that did not make the global powers believe in their narrative. So that is a fair statement in your view. That is not like Pakistan brilliantly fought this narrative or like was more prolific in convincing the world that this is not the case.
I mean, when it comes to narratives, Pakistan is really bad at it. That's
Mhm.
given. I mean, if you look at it, like they're in their own legit, uh, you know, cases. They should have been put on the international media, on international forums. They are really bad at it. If you look at it, like Kashmir, for instance, the only reason the India won over the Kashmir narrative out was because of the lack of Pakistan. I mean, forget about anything else. Just recent example, defense minister actually goes on the international media and say we've been doing that for 30 years. I gave you an example. What
Yes,
to expect from them? They're really bad. I mean, it's not just about the bad, but in terms of like
of course.
on the boundary of what you call it, that you it's like kind of hypocrisy level, that you would say that you've been included into this whole equation. I mean, some of the
The
examples
confession.
I've seen,
It
if you
was
look
kind
at
of
it like in, sorry,
it was kind of a confession, public confession that was
is a
out there.
height of stupidity. Like, I mean, literally, and they don't know what to say, what to do. And I mean, forget about like any concerted effort in order to actually go on the international forums and say, oh, this is our line. It used to be the case, but not anymore. So, I mean, they are really bad at it. So, Indians, if they are not able to actually get benefit from it, then I mean, I think, the stupidity level has gone to some new standards in this case.
Yeah, the failure is actually, I think, the multiplied because the
Right.
opponent was too bad at it and you were too good at it, but your reputation came in the way when nobody believed it. I think it's reasonable to think that these powers, their own intelligence through the mechanism, they knew that there was some fishy thing going on in this attack, and it was false flag or India was staging it. So I think that
Right.
was one of the reasons as well. There's nothing from brilliant from Pakistani leadership that actually changed this diplomatic Indian efforts and did not let them sabotage Pakistan's
Right.
um, interests. Now, moving on from this point, let's look at the battleground. We talked about the objectives and diplomatic efforts and what was going on and what was not going on in the battleground. I think that when the war starts, India fires missiles. First of all, it was very confusing, even from Pakistani side. They could not detect.
Right.
I could not say that what was it. They said there is some kind of a missile-like thing that has hit our targets, and they were confused. Do we have that clarity now? That what was that hit the first initial? I think the mosque attacks, especially where they were finding it very hard. Was that from air to ground missile, or was it ground to ground? What was that?
I think it was a short range, and on Pakistani side, we have similar sort of thing. So, uh, I mean, India is saying it's Brahmos, and I think it was. Pakistan was not expecting at that point in time. I think they were not fully ready. And as I told you, after 2nd of May, the last episode we actually did, we did discuss that, and I was of that opinion that it's not going to happen.
Mhm.
So I think they were waiting for this element of surprise that they, at that point in time, they actually sort of thought that, okay, we bring down the rhetoric, so Pakistan become like, ease up on themselves, and I think that was the reason. So that's why they could not take it out at that point in time. It wasn't a huge blow because if you look at the actual damage being done to those mosques and the footage came out, um, even the structure is standing at this point. I mean, the structure, if you have like some missile like that hit at some any location, um, I don't even think that it was Brahmos because the damage wasn't of as such. The structure was there. Yes, it created some damage and people got killed, roughly about 30 or so in all whatever like 7 8 locations, but it wasn't that hard, and India was, I think, was thinking of that they can get away with it. But the next morning, like when Pakistan actually said that we're going to be retaliating of our time of our choosing, then simply they realized that they have to actually keep on going, and then the following day you saw that in terms of the very next morning all those drones started to actually come in, and
Mhm.
that was kind of last straw on the back. Although Pakistan probably could have been like muted after an initial attack of those missiles, but I think over the time I've come to the conclusion that Pakistan, it could have been dealt with diplomacy, but the what the real thing did was the actual, drone came in. Even though those drones were not like a problem for Pakistan. I mean, obviously, people were just in Pakistan was really getting upset that what's been happening. I mean, but people were on the streets taking out their guns and shooting in the air. That okay, we're gonna bring down these drones. One of the person is asking another person, okay, put that on my back. This drone, I'm gonna carry it home. It was a joke. It was literally a joke. People were just taking, okay, I'm going to actually make a fridge with this motor and all those kind of things. So they didn't take it seriously. And at that point, I think Pakistan probably would be like, okay, fine. If somebody would have stepped in at that point in time, okay, fine. India took the revenge. Now we have to move on and all those kind of things. Pakistan probably would have attacked like across the line of control, and they probably would have damaged some. And at that point, it would be stopped. But when India hit three major strips, air bases, that was it. That was like within an hour. Like, I mean, you saw the barrages like literally gone. Oh, sorry, that happened the following day, but the airplane incident happened like, like before that. So these things built up over the time. And the nail in the coffin was this airbase thing.
Got it. So
Yeah.
basically, it's very interesting to see that why India chose this. Like, they first hit the masks, and then they hit the with the drones. I think some random locations, and then they hit the air bases. So I think if from their strategy point of view, they were they're testing the waters. They said, okay, the missiles were hit, so okay, they are saying we will retaliate. Who knows who will see that retaliation, when and what, nobody knows. I think then they kept pressing on. I think that's where your earlier comment comes into picture, that hysteria that you got, that you start getting high on
Right.
something,
Mhm.
right? When you're smoking something, you start getting high. So with those targets hit the drones, and then the missiles on the air bases was like getting the higher, higher on the weed. So at
Right.
that point, I think they made a mistake and miscalculation. And if they have not would not have done that, the consequences could have been different. At that time, we saw, I think there's a very iconic photo or the video where people are lined up in in front of the in the side of the you know truck that has this missile launcher, that they are just looking at it. And Pakistan chose different random locations so that their you know source is not detected, and fired those. And I
You know,
think
like you have to understand this. Like people saw all those footages and everything. Like, but I mean, we can go through like all the details in terms of the military equipment that's being used. But I keep on saying that Pakistan ne apna baksa abhi tak khola nahi tha. I mean, they haven't really gone into their military ammunition. If you look at it, I mean, the lineup they have at this point in time, in fact, the rockets chosen, which is Fatah 1 and Fatah 2, Fatah 1 is like about 140 kilometers range, and the Fatah 2 is about 400 kilometers range. So those missiles you saw in the footage, like in the middle of like, agricultural land, and they were just quickly moving around and then firing about three rockets and five rockets and all that. So those were the footage, and that was first thing in the morning, around Fajr time, like dawn. And there are like about eight people, eight or nine military personnel are actually taking this truck around and firing, and they're just like quickly wrapping it up and going to a new location and all that. So it was beautifully done. Um, but before that, like I mean, if you look at it, what the Air Force spokesperson actually given out the actual tactical way that they actually dealt with this whole airplane war, air defense system. That was classic. I mean, that was really amazing, amazing. Like it would be taught in schools like in years to come. So it was beautifully conducted, but I think Pakistan was fell short of actually, really respond. And they could. It's like it was that kind of a situation that you in a boxing ring, like you keep on punching, 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 and then all of a sudden you realize that okay, now I mean the person is going to get killed, and that's when we're going to be discussing exactly what happened in terms of mediation. So you just take a step back, and that's what happened. I mean, Pakistan actually could have actually taken out the way, because there were about 100 or so, according to the Indian, 100 and 110 or so planes were in the air, or some say 140. But according to the Pakistani radar, their spokesperson, they were saying like Indian airplanes in the total count was 72, and
Mhm.
Pakistani planes were about 42.
so
But
basically So basically, I think after these initial, what we described a little while ago, and the missiles, Fateh 1, Fateh 2, the game changer was GF Thunder, right? That's what basically, when Pakistan, uh, you mentioned 72 versus, I think, 40 something number that they were flying in the air, and this
right,
was kind of a dogfight that happened.
right,
It was very interesting for me, at least because I haven't seen many wars. But um, the interesting part this time was that there were no. We were being told that Pakistan has shot down five Rafale, or like three Rafale, and two other planes. But we were not seeing the footage of the pilots. The pilots were not getting captured. But when we because I think this is the first time Pakistan used GF Thunder fully in the battlefield, and that was the difference, because they were not shooting those Indian planes in Pakistan territory. How did that happen? Was there any AI involved? And also, the PAF Air Marshal, who was part of the briefing, mentioned a keyword, I think, that was stuck to my mind, and that was the spectrum. He mentioned it's not just the plane, it's the spectrum. And now we understand, I think, somehow what that spectrum meant, right? So, do you want to give us a little overview of that spectrum and the technology used in GF Thunder that took the rug out of Indians' Air Force?
So you have to, I mean, in this kind of a scenario, everything and anything is like at your disposal. So it was like a very different kind of war. So you have to actually understand that. I mean, this is not just something which is, you see and hear every day. And some of the, with Pakistanis and in Chinese, like uh, one thing we have to really take into account that it's not going to be always available. I mean, they do not actually go and publish articles that this is what it is, and the international military magazines is going to be publishing. Okay, this is what the scenario is going to be, and all that. So it's very hidden. Although we go to, for instance, if you look at it. Um, you, some of the information like actually available. So for instance, what I was telling you about the actual, Pakistan has got like this is a Wikipedia page, I'm showing it to you. So Pakistan has like surface to surface missile, which is A100E and KRL Ghazab. So this is like a Ghazab, we are talking about the smaller ones, 40 kilometers. So this is like quite handy, this 40 kilometers, 120 kilometers. Now this is Fatah 1 and Fatah 2 is being used here, what you saw in the footage. But we haven't even seen, I mean, the artillery hasn't been even used, anti tank, battlefield range, Hataf 1, Nasser, Abdali. This is like really, if you look at Abdali 180 kilometers one, this is like, it would have taken out the half a city. I mean, it would have been fired. Then you have Ghaznavi, which is about 320 kilometers. And this is like a medium range one. This is not like something which we can actually. And then there is a Shaheen range, Shaheen 1, Shaheen 2, Shaheen 3. So these goes up to 3,000 kilometers range. So this hasn't even tested. Imagine like you're hitting Delhi and Bombay and Calcutta. I mean, the furthest you can go is Calcutta, for instance. You can even hit like Seven Sisters if you want to. So Pakistan has like all this arsenal. Babur 1, which is Hataf 7, by the way, which is a cruise missile. So ground launched anti-ship and anti-surface guided missile. Pakistan could have actually taken from Islamabad if it would have fired from Islamabad and Vikrant parked in Arabian Sea, it could have hit there. It doesn't have to be by Karachi. So this is the capability we are talking about here. So and then they have like other cruise missiles, different, on in the submarine. So submarine launch ones were available. So Vikrant actually didn't come. It is stayed in all times. It is stayed in, about 400 kilometers away from Pakistan, from Karachi. So in this scenario, you create everything and anything. So Pakistan very well knew that, okay, this is going to be about air warfare, and so because India wanted to actually test is Rafale, and the air defense side they has S-400s. So anything coming out of Pakistan is going to be actually taken up by S-400s, and then we're going to go in and we're going to hit Pakistani planes. So the first target was to actually take out Pakistani planes. So they are left with no air cover. So that was the initial intent. In any country would do that. It's very totally logical that you actually take out the air cover first, because the moment you take out air cover, the enemy is naked. Like, I mean, you can go and do whatever you want, and that what achieved Pakistan achieved later on. That Pakistan could actually go in any city all over Pakistan. They've taken out missile defense system S-400s, couple of batteries, and they also didn't allow afterwards, finally, to for any of the Indian planes to fly again. So they could not fly. I mean, they were sitting ducks. So anyhow, so that was the
So
intent.
yeah,
Yeah.
so basically, I think what you went through the arsenal of Pakistan and thing, and that reminds me of a very funny meme which I was looking at, that Bangladeshi friends reminding Pakistan that watch out, don't use the longest range missile because it might pass India and come to us and hit us as well. You know, but jokes aside, I wanted to focus on the JF Thunder and its capabilities. I think what we have learned, and I think you have shared that as well, that this time JF Thunder was able to work as a swarm of
Yeah.
JF Thunders,
I
and
wouldn't
one
call it a swarm. Okay, so there is a difference. Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, a swarm in a sense that I'm taking this term from the, the drone swarms,
Right.
idea of their synchronicity, they are synchronized with each other, sharing data and information with each other, maneuvers with each other. And also, this is what my initial understanding of the system is, that these GF thunders were also connected to the radars on the ground, which was able to have a wider range of the planes coming from the enemy side.
Right.
Based on that, on top of that, the software on JF Thunder had some AI as well, where it was able to collect all that data and extrapolate that data and could locate the target 150 kilometer away, like
Right.
150 to 200 kilometer of away from that given plane. Now that gives me the idea that as a human being or as a traditional war or modern war, we have never seen this capability where you can just lock onto a target which is 200 kilometer, 150 to 200 kilometer away from you.
Mhm.
I think that was the game changer. That's why we did not see any the failed fighters falling on Pakistani grounds, because they even did not were not able to enter Pakistan airspace. Is that correct? Is this understanding
Okay, so
correct?
when you say okay, so you have to understand, sometime what happens is, like for instance, in India's case, what happened was Rafael came in this kind of a scenario when you are actually going in a war with a nuclear capable country. You have to, and obviously both of the countries that are amassing all the military equipment. You cannot just simply go and get some equipment from another country and say, "Oh, this is going to take everything out." So, for instance, even if India had F-35s at this point, and they are actually looking into it, and some of the stuff, like some of the people in some of the chatter I hear that in the military community, that ultimately that would be the actual really real punch towards Pakistan if that's the only thing which can actually safeguard India now. There's nothing, no equipment left in the world which can actually safeguard India. Now, you cannot rely on one equipment. It has to talk to other equipment in your arsenal, and that's the key. So, for instance, if you're going to get the best plane in the world, which has got all the maneuverability, has got the range and everything, but if the plane has to rely on its own radar, it's not going to help you, because the plane radar can only work so much. You need other system to work with it, and that's where the answer is to your question, that it's not about swarm. Yes, all the planes were talking to each other. It's like Tesla, basically. You can develop it. I mean, Tesla technology is not such a huge technology which cannot be developed. When we talk about the military, they have all the equipment. Sorry, your camera is keep shaking, or I have no
Oh,
idea like
okay.
what's
Sorry,
happening on
sorry,
this side.
sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So this is like when Tesla moves, it is actually looking at other cars. I mean, I don't know, like we have discussed from the tech point of view that what's the distance, how it's been tracked, at like every single car is being monitored around Tesla, at least like about um, 20 feet behind and forward and on the side and all that. So it's fully aware of this thing. So similar situation is here. Like whenever you have a plane, which is going to be ultimately how many planes are out there, what is going on, what is the actual status of that, what's the elevation, what the equipment and everything, and this is what um, is the actual scenario. Now, in this scenario, Pakistan actually, and here's the answer for that: Pakistan has got this its own indigenous radar system being developed, and it's been developed by National Radio and Telecommunication Corporation and many other ones. This is what we know in public, basically, and that actually sees. You saw that in the presentation that he was talking about. Oh, this is Bahamas is moving like this way. I don't know. Did you see that? Did you
Yeah.
see the presentation? Like a PF spokesperson did
Yeah.
that. So he was not relying on the pictures. He actually showed the video of their radar. Not
Mm.
many not many militaries can afford to do that. Nobody shows their radar system, but he was showing it. So effectively, what you are talking about, that 60, it sees up to 60,000 feet high. So anything which is coming towards Pakistan, it sees that.
Mhm.
And then it sees about 350 kilometers away. So you have a 350 kilometers radius going like this.
Hmm.
So effectively, you're talking about where the radar is sitting is looking at 700 kilometers on both sides. So if it's sitting on the border, let's say by Lahore, is seeing 350 kilometers into India. So you have multiple sitting all the way and feeding this information to their planes. So planes doesn't have that reach. Planes are parked in the middle. So if you look at it like the picture, that the picture planes were parked almost in the middle of Pakistan.
Hmm.
They were not going close because they want to stay away about 150 kilometers away from the border, because that's where their plane Rafales could actually hit. But the good thing is they could hit like 250 kilometers away.
With the PL-15, right? That we
Yeah,
talked.
with the PL-15. So, but the with the that's good enough. But you have to see that where the plane is. You can't just simply lock it that PL-15 250 kilometers away. You fire it because plane cannot see where the actual plane is. Plane has to see, and what's gonna your eyes has to be your radar, and plane's radar cannot actually show you where the plane enemy plane is. An enemy plane is being, and that's where the whole system, all spectrum 360 degrees come in, that
Hmm.
this radar is seeing the control tower, or whatever the control room is seeing pretty much, and feeding in, or this plane or that plane or J10C or J17 block 3, or like I'm feeding into F16, or I'm feeding into this is where the plane is. So it's very important that this system has to mutually work, and based on which you make a decision. For instance, like if Fatah 2 is not going to be fired while these planes are actually firing their PL-15s.
Hmm.
So there has to be a control. But on the Indian side, what was happening? The Rafale is not talking to S-400s.
Hmm.
Rafale is not, or S-400 is not talking to MiG-21s, or MiG-21 is not talking to Su-30. So they did not have that coherent AI system based in. And yes, manually you can do that. One person in the control room can see all of that. Where is Su-21, Su-30, or MiG-21, or where are the Rafales, or where how the S-400 is going to be operating and everything. But this is so fast, so it has to be integrated in the AI, and that's where the Pakistani system was coming in. It's all AI integrated based system, and that's what he was talking about. So sorry that it took me a while to actually
Yeah,
explain the whole
and
thing, but
that was really
but
important. I think that was the interesting thing about this system was that it was never tested before in the actual battlefield. You can have theoretically or in the lab, you can have the most perfect system, but until you put it in the out in the actual war and actual scenario and in the hands of the people who are piloting it, you never know what's going to happen. So this was kind of a miraculous comeback from Pakistani side, that everything worked out. It could have been that the system would have any faults, given Chinese products are not very well known for working 100% of the time.
another thing I want to add here. So you have to understand. I told you. I mean, remember, like we were doing the penetration, like on 25th of April, that's when we were calculating the PL-15s were handed over.
Yeah.
Now you can hand over anything. Like for instance, the spear can be handed over to a person and say, "Here you go. You fight this guy on the horse." That guy, although he's able to or being trained on spear handling, cannot actually be very helpful to actually use this length of spear or the
Mm.
weight of the spear. You have to have a training, like, I mean,
Yeah,
just two elements, the length of the spear and the weight of the spear is going to actually decide whether it's going to be good for you or not.
correct. Yeah,
You getting my point?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not that easy that, oh, here you go, I'm going to supply you PL-15, and tomorrow you're going to actually fire those missiles and you're going to take down the planes. It doesn't have work like that.
It's
So
the
they were trained on using those missiles well before, although the range wasn't that much, but they were fully aware of it. They are good in training. They can remember that I was telling you about, like, the whole course of F-16 was about 2 years, but they completed that in 11 months. And then at that time, instructor said the best plane of the world is going to best air force of the world.
So
So
it's, yeah,
yeah, so this is
it's
what,
not
yeah.
only the machine but also the man, and man with the right machine. It's not just the machine, it's just not the man, it's man.
Plane is only as good as its pilot. It doesn't matter like what you
Right.
give it to them.
So this miraculous comeback actually suddenly, I think, to the surprise of most of the Indians and of course Pakistanis and of course all other people around the globe, saw this kind of immediate request for the ceasefire. So was, I think, when those targets were hit by Pakistan using the Fateh and also the JF Thunder, we saw some video imagery as well. That was miraculous. We saw that JF Thunder is dodging the anti-aircraft machine guns from the ground, and it was just out of the world. Now, at what point did India realize that this is getting out of the hands? That this is like they were high on hysteria, they were high on hate, they were high on superiority, and then suddenly they hit the wall, and they realize that the real world is different. So at that point, in my view, I think personally speaking, it was a very quick and very sane sentiment from India, that which we all know, and it has been reported that India reached out to US for the ceasefire,
Right.
mediation from US. That's what we are getting reports on. Now that was pretty fast. Like India could have taken maybe a day, another day to think
No,
about.
it was getting very critical. You have to understand.
Yeah.
So basically, we always calculated. Remember, we were calculating that Pakistan have this openly propagated that they do not follow first use principle. They going to use first use nuclear weapon kind of scenario. The world in the world knows, and that is being perceived as that since Pakistan doesn't have a conventional war capability or defending capability, Pakistan always going to use the nuclear option as first. But here the situation was totally opposite. In my calculation, and I think it would come to the light soon,
Mhm.
that India was just at the point that they were going to use the nuclear. That was the only option left for them. And I'll tell you how. Okay. I'll prove it that they did not have any other option left.
Mhm.
So, first of all, their planes were sitting duck. I mean, I've told you, like Pakistan was actually the only place they could actually fly the plane was on their eastern side of the country.
Mhm.
The moment their planes were coming up, they would be start flying like flies basically. So once the air cover is being blown, what else is left? Is your missile defense system. Now, once the S-400 did not deliver, their couple of batteries in Udhampur and Pathankot was taken out. This is such a major blow for S-400. Forget about India. It's such a major blow for S-400 and for Rafale that these invincibility of the missile defense system is gone. Now the planes can actually take out. What's the point of having a air defense system if it doesn't work? So, and that wasn't taken by the missile, by the way. That was taken by the plane. So plane actually went there and then took it out.
Mhm.
So now once the air cover is gone, no offense, no defense. Okay. Now what options do you have? Now you have like a ground troops and you have navy. Those are the only two things left, right? Now with the Navy, we know that their Vikrant did not move. And Vikrant, by the way, is not full fledged like that aircraft carrier like you see in movies. It only has like about 13 or 14 planes, which is only there to actually safeguard itself. I mean, how far can you go and all that? And we saw that it did not come close to Pakistani shores. So they were not really ready to take on, although they were trying to cordon off like Pakistan. If they were going to actually have a longer war, they probably would cordon off Pakistan seashore. and this way the supplies could not actually get to Pakistan. That was the ultimate goal. But other than that, they did not fly any missile, they did not fly any plane from it, which could actually destruct. Although they made huge claims that the Karachi port is being destroyed and thousands of people being dead and all those kind of things, nothing happened. And now we know the pictures were shown and everything. So Navy option is not being used because they knew something happened. And by the way, Turkish ship was there for that very reason, that they were not, they, that was the understanding that Turkey, and we saw on their news also that privately they conveyed to India that they're not going to allow any traffic to be cordoned off by Indians. Now, land troops. India did amass their land troops closer to the border, on the actual Pathankot side, where just next to Sialkot, and also kind of like been in south also. But Pakistan was very well aware, and they were not even like putting their troops out. They were going to take them out and smoke them, smoke them literally. So that was the plan, and they did not. When you move the ground troops, effectively what it means is going to take a long time to kind of consolidate and attack and all those kind of things. But in this scenario, effectively Pakistan, and I know for a fact, I had the ground people on the ground who were actually reporting that the whole region, and this region, if I could show you on the map actually, then I'll be able to actually explain a lot more in a better way.
Sure.
So if you look at it, this is where the main uh, you know area was where the battle was happening. So this is Islamabad. Then you have Gujranwala, and then this is the Pathankot. So this is Pathankot right there. Okay. Now this is Jammu line. This is where the Jammu line is, where my mouse is moving. Okay.
Mhm.
This is the Jammu line. So from the Jammu line, you have like undisputed territory, and this is where the whole land incursion could have been possible or anything. So okay, so if you look at this dent, this indent in Indian territory, this is the main area where we call it a Narwal is right here. This is a Shakargarh. Now this indent actually goes in, and it's very difficult to defend. It's a common sense because on three sides you have enemy.
Mhm.
You're getting my point?
Yeah.
So, like India could come in from this side, India could come in from this side, India could come in from this side, right?
Mhm.
So, this is very difficult to defend. Now, this was all evacuated.
Mhm.
This was all evacuated. So, for India, it was very easy to actually walk in like this and cut it off and then claim all this land. But what was going to happen the moment they would have come in, they would be smoked.
Mhm.
And that was the land troop. So this whole area was evacuated from Narwal and Chakargarh, and they would be smoked right there. So they would have like maybe 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 troops could be like smoked right there. Now I don't want to be explicit.
By airstrikes or
I don't want to be explicit about this, but you know what I mean. So
yeah. Right. Got
okay.
it. So
So
that. Mhm.
1 second. So Navy air cover is gone. Navy option they didn't use. Land troops they had the clear strategy to take them out. Now only option left is what? If you fire from West Bengal, one missile which is going to actually hit Pakistan and has started flying, you never know whether it has a nuclear on it or not. And at that point in time, Pakistan would have been fired. And if Pakistan would have been fired, that's it. Then you would have a nuclear war, and that's what really pushed, because India didn't wasn't left with any option whatsoever other than using a nuclear, and that's
Got it.
when world community realized that okay, this is a serious thing going on now.
Before it gets too out of control, and the hysteria mixed with this superiority complex, and this hype that also this mindset of Netanyahu coming into Modi's skull, that could you know bring chaos in the world. So I think that's where people, the other power stepped in. Now we we saw this immediate request of ceasefire, and that was puzzling. And also, I mean, kind of, we do not want war. Of course, war is not a good thing. But at the same time, Pakistanis were expecting that, you know, because Pakistan has pushed the battle, now they will see some entertainment. Like this will see this more casualties, more targets hit, military targets hit in India. But
Right.
that did not happen, and they were kind of in the middle of their, you know, happiness. You know, but they were very excited to see that the military has responded finally after waiting so long. This ceasefire request was kind of a shocking at first. And as we have gone through that option, that I mean, the two options on the table: nuclear ceasefire, and India chose the ceasefire option and requested the ceasefire. How permanent is this ceasefire?
Yeah, before the ceasefire, I think I just want to make one thing absolutely clear. The way
Hmm.
it's been projected in the world and the way it looks that as if Chinese has won the war. I mean,
Hmm.
this is not the case. You have to understand this whole element of that, okay, that Chinese equipment, PL-15 and all those kind of things, that we didn't have that, that would happen or that would happen. You have to understand that a lot of equipment, as I explained earlier on, that this radar is first of all, you have to understand J-17 Block 3 Thunder is being developed 100% in Pakistan. Yes, there was a joint effort in order to actually kind of get to this point. Block 1 was kind of jointly developed and everything. So that's Pakistani made. Plus the pilots are Pakistani. Plus this radar system I've already told you. So they to say that somehow without Chinese help, this would not. And that's what the Indian narrative is, that okay, if we had similar sort of support from America, we would have what. It doesn't work like that. And you would know in the years to come that that it takes a gut. In fact, I think Pakistan should say that let's have an open challenge. I mean, this is really would be entertaining. You can raise millions of dollars on this, and India should say, okay, fine, we'll do this. Take two Rafales, give one to Pakistan, give Indians already have the training to actually fly it. Give Pakistan a couple of months to actually get trained on, and then have a dogfight, and then
Hmm.
let's have a fun as well as see what happens. So this is, I think, Pakistan should open challenge India, and they can send their best pilot. Pakistan can send their best pilot and see what happens, how the dogfight comes along, and then we'll see. And it used to be the case, like when in the old times, when you before the all-out war, uh, there used to be a deal. You have three people coming from this side, three people coming from this side, and they used to fight each other. And that's when you realize that which one is the stronger one. So anyhow, so jokes aside, but this is a serious point that ultimately is going to be a situation where we have to realize that this Pakistan is now a force to be reckoned with. It's not just simply used to be the case.
Absolutely.
On your holding a ceasefire, as long as US doesn't come to save India, which in my opinion, although there are reports that there are some equipment is being supplied to, some reinforcements is being given to, some flight plans or paths have been noted. um, but I think America wouldn't actually get in unless it really betting on a country which is going to make them lose. So if America actually comes in to help, and this window is being used just to actually provide India some reinforcements, then it's very short time. It's not going to last. But if America doesn't come, then India doesn't have like enough firepower or a strategy in place in order to actually break it. So
Right.
that's my
So
take
when
on
you say in US comes in, like US comes in as like actual force in, like, behind India, like how do you describe that part? This is very interesting.
it. Israel is, yeah, hand in glove with India. and
Yeah.
Israel wants, I'll give you, you have to understand that Israel, doesn't matter who you come on an intellectual level, ultimately they think the real enemy is Pakistan. And if you, in current scenario, if you look at it, I mean, no other country has this military power in the Muslim world. Which other country? If Turkey has it, Turkey hasn't shown it to the rest of the world.
Hmm.
Pakistan, for the very first time from any Muslim nation, has shown it to the world. I mean, if Turkey and Egypt has this, or Indonesia has this, no other nation has it. I mean, Iran was flying like kites basically when it was attacking Israel. Those were just literally dropping down dead. Like, I don't know what were those things, but we used to fly those flame things. Remember that flame balloons we used to fly? Those were like that. So for the
Yeah.
very first time, this Muslim country has. So Israel is really threatened by Pakistan. Like, I mean, I'm not just boosting, but I'm just really see that what would be the ultimate power that if in Israel tried to achieve its greater Israel image, if there would be any military power, what would it be? So you
That
have
would
to.
be very interesting. I think that would come when we discuss Pakistan's leadership role in this thing. That if that is even a possibility. Now, regarding this permanency of this ceasefire, because this ceasefire is such an emergency, this ceasefire happened in such a emergency situation, that interestingly, there were no conditions to the ceasefire. Like, I haven't heard from a single report that India put some conditions on this ceasefire, right? And I haven't heard either from Pakistani side that there were some conditions put on the table. And we have not seen the conditions, validation of those conditions. It's just simply that Trump, as usual, wake up in the middle of the night and posted this post that we spent the whole night and we have negotiated a deal with them. What is the deal? Nobody knows about it. If there's a deal, if there are any conditions of the deal, it's just a ceasefire that happened. Now, I think India, Modi has come on the screen after like 5 or maybe so many days, and has come up and just to keep the momentum of his hard, outlook, has been pointing fingers and telling Pakistan that we are still watching you and this and that. And like, what is the credibility of this man anymore? Where he has not won any diplomatic, globally, nobody was standing with India. There is no condition of the ceasefire that Pakistan agreed to. There were no handover or even commitment of finding those, you know, quote unquote terrorists that did that attack. Like, there was nothing of that sort. So it looks like this was kind of need of the hour from Indian perspective. It's called in Urdu it's called majburi, because they were forced to do that, and I think they are not happy with this thing. The ceasefires happened, but they have not accepted it. That's what the feeling is from what Modi's this statement was, that they have just paused this. Like, he came on the screen and gave the impression that he just paused this offense into Pakistani terrorist, their hiding places, and it will continue. Now, are we expecting that somehow magically, or some miraculously, somehow India would be capable of find the antidote of this GF Thunder, technology in next few days and come back stronger, and now they have seen it all from Pakistani side, which they have not actually. We went through the whole arsenal. There are long list of arsenal that could have been used. So is this the case that India is just gaining some time to find some kind of a counter for this air superiority to Pakistan?
Look, for Pakistan is this is the best strategy for India to actually wait it out. There's
Hmm.
no doubt about it. Everybody knows that if they're going to keep Pakistan on edge, they. But the thing is, like the hysteria they created, it's not going to stop there. You have to understand what's going on in India right now is agitation. is calls for resigning for Modi. It's like, they're dissecting it, what sort of claims they've been made in the media. Iranian ambassador is being called as pig. The Muslim population is not fully on board. The Sikhs are dissenting from their army. This is not going to go unnoticed. You have to understand, this is like, you know success has its own offsprings. The same thing goes with the losing a war has its offspring. So losing is doesn't go unnoticed. If it's like on a personal level, that's a different story, but when you actually brought in the whole nation with the promise to win this war, and then lost it so drastically, with a flat face on the ground, then ultimately what happens is people start to actually question you. People start to actually, bring a dissension in this. So you don't have like this united front anymore, and that's where the real answer is for this. So even if India
Mhm.
plans to actually wait it out and think that it's going to die down over the time, it's not going to be similar sort of support you'll get from the Indian public. And Pakistan actually utilized this opportunity to actually, give a strength to the um, illegitimate government, for instance, or illegitimate, like, whatever the mandate was given to current regime. And military is a lot more powerful. They have got drew their strength with this. So this is the outcome. Like, remember, like every single time we are saying who's the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is military, Pakistan military. Beneficiary is China. Beneficiary is current even political government that they can claim it. Um, so beneficiary is
But
Chengdu
but the
organization.
current but the current government did not start it, right? It was not in their control that India would fight with Pakistan, would send the missiles. They did not ask for it. I mean, they did not have the power to initiate this thing. I think it was enforced on them, and then the Pakistani leadership applied that way. Now, that this brings me to this very interesting aspect of the whole thing. We have been talking about on the Indian side. India did this. India was thinking that. But now, just like let's look at the Pakistani leadership. I think, let's say that first 2 days the war is happening and the missiles are firing all over the places, drones are flying over Pakistanis' heads, and no response. And they are saying the time of choosing and when we will do that. That was very kind of, in retrospective, looks like very thought out scenario. But at that given time, it looked very like cowardly kind of a thing that the the other parties throwing punches at your head and face, and you're just saying I'll choose the time and the timing and the occasion of punch you back. um, I think, but the interesting part for me was that when Marco Rubio called Pakistani, first he called Shahbaz Sharif, the prime minister of Pakistan, the prime minister of Pakistan, and I mean, nothing happened right after that. And then on the day Pakistani fired back, the General Asim Munir, the chief of army staff, gets the call, and then we suddenly see the ceasefire. Now, it's very interesting. India was under the threat, and India was kind of, their army was getting sabotaged. They were under attack. So it makes
Right.
totally sense for them to, out of panic, they agreed to the ceasefire. But how come Pakistan agreed to ceasefire without having any conditions, on the ceasefire? This is where the leadership role comes into picture. We know.
Right.
Let me make it very clear for everybody that in Pakistan, Pakistanis, most of them believe that the current government is not legitimate. They were made out of Form 47, which is kind of in control of the election commission to maintain it, right? And they are not even were not happy with
Let
the
me
current.
let me ask you a question. A lot of people are actually asking this, but let me ask you a question. in those ceasefire document, let's say, what would
Mhm.
be the 3 points you would want to see from Pakistan? What would
Absolutely.
have Pakistan should have said? Oh, if you agree, if India agrees to these 3 points, then we are ready to ceasefire. What do you think?
Sure. So I think first of all, I would have put Kashmir at the top of the thing, that let's
Correct.
resolve Kashmir, let's have the third party involved, and let's solve this matter.
Okay,
The
second one.
second would have been the water treaty should have been reinforced, that
Okay,
US would be guaranteeing itself that the water will never be stopped.
and third
And the
one.
third would be this rhetoric over Pakistan calling terrorist state, and that hysteria that India launches on Pakistan, these fake
Okay,
news websites and everything, that they will stop doing that against Pakistan. And
okay. So
maybe
let me
fourth
answer it.
one would maybe fourth one would be to reinstate the economic ties between those two countries. I think that would be a
Forget
valid.
about economic ties. Who want to at this point economic ties? Forget
No,
about that.
fourth. I think
Okay.
that's down the list, but it's still kind of a point where those two countries work together.
Yeah, this is not the time for that. I mean, obviously, somebody has actually killed you and made your like
I think
fired upon
it's a
you.
fourth point. It's a fourth point. It's a fourth point.
Forget
Let's
it.
talk about the three
That's
points.
not even the point. Okay,
Yeah.
so on top 3 points. Okay, now this is amazing. So these are the three asks for the Pakistan, right? So the very
Yeah.
first one we look at it, dissect it.
Mhm.
For the very first time in past 50 years, after Shimla Accord, by the way, this is the very first time now India has nothing to say against it. Like they are really furious that why did it happen? Trump in constantly in his tweets, in both tweets, by the way, he said,
Mhm.
I'm going to be resolving Kashmir. So Kashmir is already back on the table.
Mhm.
He actually mentioned that once Kashmir comes in United States president's tweet, it's already on the global front. So that's been given already to Pakistan. So for the very first time, when you actually say that Kashmir is going to be the central argument of this whole thing, that your first point is already been delivered. Now, what would be the modalities of this? That's a different story. We'll look upon that and how India would respond to it. But India, by accepting this, has by default actually taken this into account that now, because it wasn't that silently US have actually communicated to India that okay, this is a ceasefire, you keep quiet and be nice boys, okay, here you go and sit down. That's what happened actually in 2019. There was no public public outburst from the US side that okay, you could do this, you do this, or like a publicly accepting that they were the mediators. Here is entirely different. So you have like on record that the Trump actually, President of the United States, actually gone in. The openly Secretary of State actually made a phone call. There was some conversation, and these conversation doesn't happen like this. That I pick up a phone and talk to you. These conversation is every conversation is minuted. So what Marco Rubio actually talked to both of them is all minuted. Now on the second point, I think there's already reports that two of the spillways are open, which were closed on Bagliar Dam. Okay, so that's one thing. Secondly, this is something needs to be monitored. If India says that I put that in abeyance, what does that mean? Are you not go? Are you going to hold the water? And are you, whenever you're going to release, you're not going to let Pakistan know? So these are the two things, right? You're not going to hold the water, and whenever there's a more water coming in, you're going to let Pakistan know. This is the only condition of the actual Indus treaty, right? So in this case, Pakistan, I mean, if they don't let Pakistan know what Pakistan can do, that's fine. That's not a bigger deal. But what the bigger deal is that they actually hold water. And if they hold water, then Pakistan would know and Pakistan would be able to actually do something about it. And they will be open to it. At that point in time, they're going to go to the US and say, look, the ceasefire is not ultimately being adhered to. And then they are holding water. So now we're going to do something about it unless you do something about it. And the third thing is, I don't think that's more important that, okay, they never going to actually stop. I don't think they're going to ever stop because this is their cornerstone of their political framework. Anybody who actually would give up and say, oh, Pakistan is a really nice boy, they don't do anything in our territorial integrity, nothing happens here. This is their politics. And then we have
let,
seen time and
let
again.
me play. Okay, it's all good and fair and looks very obvious,
Right.
but let me play Zelensky here.
Sure.
What is the guarantee, like, of a tweet that, in the tweet Kashmir was solved, in a tweet of President Donald J. Trump? I want to play Zelensky, and I'm saying that India has never agreed to solving Kashmir. India has never welcomed, and even their policies to that no third party mediation in Kashmir. It
You're
is
absolutely
Pakistan.
right. You are absolutely right. There's no confirmation. I mean, there's no document. That's why I
Yeah.
keep saying that for this ceasefire, usually what happens is there is like some sort of phases involved in this.
And I
So,
think, the point which I'm trying to drive home is that the lack of leadership here. I mean, if there was
correct.
no document, it was Pakistan's role, leadership role, to bring up such a document that, okay, here is the draft of our agreement. Here's a draft of our conditions. Can you please put through this to the Indian side, and they make them agree to these conditions? That's exactly where the leadership comes into picture. That's what I'm questioning here. If, like, if I was the chief of army staff, and somebody, if Marco Rubio calls me, I would have done the same thing what the chief of army staff did. It just adhered to the advice, or to the command, whatever you want to call it, that stopped the war, like, and I would have done the same thing. My point is that the leadership would have played a much better role. Let's say, in a scenario, let me play this thing a little bit. Let's say if Marco Rubio had called, for the lack of example, let's say if Imran Khan was on power, and Marco Rubio had called Imran Khan or any other leader, that leader would have said that, I need to consult my cabinet, and we need to come up with a decision, and the cabinet would have pondered over it, and come up with a response, and with all the negotiation points and whatnot. But this was like, somebody calling the chief of army staff. Like, how many people, how many countries in the world, their chief of army gets called by a foreign nation? It
Yeah,
should
we
have.
already have. I don't know why we are discussing this point. We already know that we discussed it. The biggest thing for them is take out for them is that chief of army staff has got the legitimacy now. The whole world is talks to him. So
Mhm.
you have to understand that.
No, no,
That
I
he
understand
got,
that.
you asked me who was the beneficiary. I
Yeah.
told you he's the beneficiary for this.
Okay.
Um,
So, if chief of army staff is beneficiary, if this government is the beneficiary, I think they became beneficiary due to the stupidity of Indian government, Indian side.
yeah,
Otherwise,
absolutely.
they
You
were.
know, many beneficiary, like even not in a negative connotation attached to it, but if you look at it, Pakistan military has attained a status as I'm talking about the air force, I'm talking about the actual military, I'm talking about the navy. I mean, they as a whole, they attained the status of a force which is to be reckoned with. I mean, how would you get that status? No
Absolutely.
other. I mean, the military doesn't get
That
that kind of a
goes to
status. So
that
if you look
goes
at it,
a huge credit to the Pakistani army, of course,
right,
due to their preparation, due to their commitment, and due to the execution that Pakistan achieved this thing. There's no question about it. And salute to Pakistani forces and army to bring that status home, like it's like a medal home. And there's
correct.
no question about it. It's just the leadership role from the current government establishment was not that shining.
Look, we have already established that by saying that the defense minister is actually going on the international. I mean, look at this stupidity. Like the mental derailment has gone to a level. I mean, forget about any intellectual capacity here. If the person can actually go on the international TV and say, "Oh, we've been doing that for 30 years," what are you talking about? So he there's no mental capacity in order to circumvent the whatever the ball is being thrown at you. Why would you go there? So it's
So
not just Minister of Defense. Also, the Foreign Minister did the same thing. He was like, rumbling, and he was like, really taking long pauses and try to actually deliver what he wanted to say, but he could not deliver it. I mean, forget about any strength coming out of their mouth. So I already know that. So there, this is like a waste of my time in order to actually discuss them. They are capable. They've been installed in this in these seats, and military knows that. But the point is, the moment they actually bring the other side in into the equation and give them as a political seat, military goes on the back seat, and military cannot afford right now to go on the back seat. That's where the problem is.
Okay, so very interesting. I think we discussed the Indian side, we discussed the Pakistani side. I think it's very comprehensive retrospective of the events which happened in the past week. Now, I think to conclude this conversation, the key point is that the possibility is huge that India just is gaining time over this, given their grudges, given their hysteria, given that they have pumped up the nation so hard. It's very hard to actually bring them back to the reality. Does it look like that this warfare would evolve from here? Like, is India gonna go back, gain some by gaining this time, look into this Pakistani new capability, work on it, and maybe sell their Rafale in the second in the used market or somewhere to some other country and buy something else, or maybe we maybe develop something on top of the Rafale to build this capability to even out with Pakistan. Given that Pakistan is now looking at JF-35, I think that's the latest model which China is working on, and they are willing to force because I think Pakistan has done their marketing
Right.
for their weapons. So they're going to give to Pakistan. So are we looking at this thing that this is now the start of the new battle, start of the new era where Pakistan has the advantage? And is this advantage sustainable for a long time? Like, would this be the case for next 1 year, 2 year, 5 year that Pakistan would have this edge? Or is there a possibility that the India would come up with something as an antidote for this GF Thunder technology?
I don't think anything going to be happening in next couple of years. It takes a long time before, as I told you, this is not just about the actual plane. I mean, you can get the best plane in the world, but you have to have the whole spectrum. And I've already explained to you this war actually was the war of technology. I mean, this is not the war that you actually go and physically do something. Tanks were, I mean, sitting ducks, they were just like not even moved. I mean, when we were doing the comparison between the arsenal of US from Pakistan and India, I mean, literally about 0.5% of the arsenal been used. Rest of the arsenal, when we were comparing about the tanks and mines and missiles and all those kind of like, guns and planes and ships and all that, where was that? I mean, there's no opportunity to actually use that in future wars. All
Mhm.
It's all about technology. If Pakistan was able to actually seize the communication of Indian satellites, Indian military satellite communication was jammed. I mean, can you imagine that India could not actually use that communication, their military satellite?
Mhm.
Pakistan hacked it. So I don't want. I mean, I have explained those details, that how did they do it and all those kind of things. Like we looked into much of a detail, but you have to understand that if you have the capability to actually see 350 kilometers inside India and 60,000 above in the atmosphere, all the way to the atmosphere, then and you keep that eyes open. Nobody was there to actually jam you or like take your eyes away from you, whereas Pakistan was actually taking their eyes away from them. So it doesn't matter what equipment you get. Like, I mean, I don't know if US has some kind of equipment like that to jam Pakistani radars or anything. God knows, I don't know. Only then I think we see that India would have an advantage. And I don't think in Israel has, because of his geographical size, Israel never needed these kind of equipment. All they needed, and nobody around Israel is has got enough power. It's been taken away from them. In I mean, go as far as Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Jordan, Saudi, Lebanon, Syria. So immediate neighbors, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt doesn't have the capability to actually do anything. That capability has been taken away from them.
So
So
interesting question is, sorry, please complete the.
so basically those countries or that equipment, Israel doesn't have it. I mean, the equipment was needed by or to reckon with Pakistan. India should have it. Israel cannot actually provide it, although they are really good at technology.
So we are saying that this the antidote for this GF Thunder technology is not
Again,
needed.
I would correct you. It's not
Mhm.
about JF's Thunder quality. I'm
Just the
talking about
spectrum.
this whole spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I meant when we talked about the spectrum and we talked about the whole spectrum with the GF Thunder. It's not just the GF Thunder. So this whole spectrum with GF Thunder and PL-15 and all those components coming into place, that immediately no other region has this need for this kind of weaponry. And given that we talked about Israel and Israel's opponents, enemies around the region, they don't have this capability. Now there are two questions I think which our audience would like to know, that would any other country be able to buy this spectrum or GF Thunder from China? Is China selling this on the open market, like Iran can buy this from
Look,
China?
I have already explained it to you. This has been going on for past 15 years. Okay. This is not that you can actually buy off the whole thing. This has multi-moving pieces. Like, I mean, there's so many pieces in this whole spectrum when we are talking about. And most of it is developed indigenously by Pakistan. It's
Okay.
not like, yes, joint. I mean, let me give you an example. About 25 years ago, back in 90s, I'm talking about late 90s, now, Pakistan has started to actually develop a missile system because obviously it needed a missile system. As far as back in 92, you remember like when Benazir actually, went and delivered some message to North Korea and all those kind of things. This is the open secret. So Pakistan needed to deliver its deterrent to another location. It needed a missile. Now, I have shown you the list of missiles. That missile has been developed indigenously in Pakistan by Pakistani engineers, Pakistani scientists. And same thing goes for the radar. Same thing goes now for JF-17 Thunder. So, what do you think? F-16 for past 35 years has been actually just sitting in Pakistan and didn't need any overhauling or changing any. Even a single car, just car, a dumb car, it needs kind of like maintenance. Forget about the plane. Whenever the plane would come back, it needs some replacement on the plane, especially the fighter plane. Even the normal commercial plane, whenever it comes, like you have to do these 2200 checks on the plane, that whether it's ready to fly again or not. So who was doing those maintenance? I mean, obviously that plane wasn't flying to US to actually get it maintained. It was done by Pakistan. So when you go through all these phases, you build some things around it and then you make it talk to each other. So when we are talking about like AI element coming into this equation, what AI is doing is actually learning this working togetherness of this. So you have radar, you have plane, you have information coming in through JF-17 Thunder radar, feeding back into our local radar, and then talking to a missile system and talking to our missile shield, which is going to be saving it, and then talking to like some drones we're going to be flying over Delhi. I mean, this is like a whole spectrum of things talking to each other. And this is where the real connection comes in. It's not
Uh,
like Pakistan is going to have like this edge or that edge. This whole system has to, and that's where the real strength comes in. That's what I'm trying to actually explain throughout this whole conversation.
Absolutely. No, I think that is pretty clear that this is not just one component, it is the all the components coming into one system. That is not easy to build. It takes some time and it's indigenous. I mean, it's built in Pakistan right there. So the advantage this Pakistan would keep this edge for a bit longer than we are
So let
expecting.
me let me one more point. So that as I gave you the example of spear, So the spear, like, yes, you can give somebody a spear, but even let's say a person is able to actually throw this spear, but at the same time, or fully trained, but then that spear has to be the right weight and right length for that person. You cannot just give any length. So it's same
Got it.
example.
Yeah,
Okay.
it depends on the
So
Pakistan. Yeah,
so now when the PL-15 came in, no other plane fighter or pilot can actually fire that whenever needed. Okay, fine. All of a sudden you have like some new tool in your bag. You can't just simply take out and start using it unless you know how to use it. So they've been trained on these missiles, which are ready to hit another plane about 150 kilometers away. Now, only thing actually increased at this point in time is you have another 100 kilometer which you can actually lock in. You were able to actually read all the radars. You were able to actually see what's going on in the whole spectrum. You were able to before see that how many planes are flying with me, how many what's the distance and everything. So yeah.
got it. Now, so basically, what we can see, there's an option here for India
Hmm.
that either they build their own spectrum, or they could look for US and get maybe a system like THAAD, or for the defense system. Maybe would that be on the table? I think that they would be looking to replace the S-400 systems with something more modern, like the Iron Dome or something like that from US. That's one thing that might be what they're looking into. The second thing is that do actually does actually US has any kind of capability or technology that India can get from US that could tilt the balance in Indian side?
The only
In
thing they can get, like, you have to understand, if they are able to, and I know you keep on going to the point where whether this ceasefire is not going to hold and then they're going
Yeah.
to start resuming a war or something like that. Now, if this is what you have that in your mind, the only option is available to India in a short term, that if you think that, and I think you keep pressing me to actually
Yeah.
answer that in a week's time whether war is going to again broke out. The only way India would get a added advantage, that Israel actually brings in equipment, and they they actually bring in their personnel with it, or America actually bring in equipment and they also start fighting on behalf of India. You can't just simply train Indian pilots and their infantry and all those Indian people on this technology. So I hope this like settles this argument. There's no way, and it happened, by the way, in 2019. The two planes were shot down, right? You did not see the second pilot.
Mhm.
That was the Israeli pilot. And Pakistan was like this time, because they actually denied we don't have anybody, because they didn't want to. And that was the part of the actual deal of the,
Mhm.
you were saying like what Pakistan has achieved. Pakistan, one of the condition was they are not going to parade female pilot, Indian female pilot on the TV, which
Mhm.
he denied, that we don't have that and it's only a social media, while the air spokesperson was smiling when he was saying that we have
Yeah.
that. But they actually, and a lot of people were upset. Why are you not parading her at this point in time? What you going to feed her? Did you feed her with chai and all those kind of things? But I think I'm okay with it. Like, if they did not parade her on the TV, I think it's very respectful and diligent way of saying. It's very the
But at the
dignity
same
has to
time,
be.
KZ, respect gets respect. Like India has not given zero respects to
And they
Pakistanis.
won't, and they won't. I know for a fact that's their character. It's not
Yeah.
just about the respect,
So
but whenever they're
Why suddenly Pakistan, after winning this kind of a short battle, is not parading the captured pilots? Because that would really put a slap on the Indian media that
right.
has been harping on this thing that Pakistan has been destroyed and this and that. And so I think there's
Look
some kind
what I'm look what I am really upset about is not that she wasn't paraded on the TV. Fine, If it was a requirement,
Hmm.
fine, go ahead and not parade her. That's fine. I'm okay
Hmm.
with that. What I'm not okay with it is to deny on the live TV that we don't
Yeah,
have it.
yeah.
That's what I'm not okay with. And
At
nobody should
least,
be okay with it.
yeah.
You should
At
have
least a
said that we
show.
are keeping her, we captured her, and we are holding a pilot. And even if you have to release it within few minutes, not a problem. But do not deny it. That is
Yes,
actually backstabbing us, Pakistan.
correct,
And
correct.
whenever they'll get the benefit, they'll backstab you.
Absolutely.
Why
And if
why
the
would you? So here's the answer. That's my stance.
yeah, that's exactly what my feeling is. But I think that has been wonderful, and we really thank our audience. We had a very consistent audience watching this show and episode. So just a reminder that we keep an eye on geotech Our name suggests you that we cover not only geopolitics but also the technology. This technology is everywhere. Technology is defining the the geopolitics in the world. So keep watching us. We have a YouTube channel as well where you can watch our previous shows and episodes. We highly recommend that you go and watch those shows so that you could see the momentum we have built through. We have covered a lot of ground in the new world Trump order. A new Trump world order. How things are going forward, and we got this opportunity to talk about Pakistan, India, and this retaliation that happened, this short battle that happened, and we'll continue deep diving into conversations that are of interest to our larger audience. So please let us know what interests you the most, and we will try to do an episode on that part, and just explore and learn together. So with that, thank you so much, Casey. Thanks for being here, and appreciate your deep analysis. And for the audience, have a good evening or good morning wherever you are, and at least share and subscribe us. Thank you for watching us, and have a good day. Take care.
Allah Hafiz.